everybody. My name's Greg, and I'm here today with Brian Partee. As you know us, 3 on tap. Spencer is gone today. He's playing hooky. Nobody really knows where he is. He might be somewhere in Arkansas, but today you get Brian and myself, and today was actually Spencer's job to plan the podcast too. So I think what we're going to do is just riff on this and make something up.
Wing it.
Yeah, we're winging it today. All right. Well, Brian, the new year just happened. We're recording this on the 7th, so it's still technically within the week. Why don't we focus on resolutions?
That'll work. Let's talk about resolutions. Non-profit resolutions, right? Like, I don't want to. Nobody wants to hear about. I'm going to be nicer because I'm not a nice person. I'm not going to be nicer. I'm just not. I'm going to make more money. I'm going to make. I might make more money. You don't want to know how. If I, rob and steal or something like that. What if it's nefarious? So let's talk about non-profit resolutions.
Yeah, non-profit resolutions. Like, what are the things that every nonprofit should be trying to do better as we enter into 2026? And I think also, like, what are the things that we should be preparing for as we enter into 2026? What are the trends that we saw take place over 2025 as we enter into this new year? And how do we prepare our nonprofits and causes and missions and constituents?
Our listeners, we got to say.
And our listeners.
Our listeners.
To do and be better in order to have a more prosperous year.
Yeah.
So, where do you want to start?
I will start. I'm going to throw something out there.
Okay, got it.
Planning. That's got to be done. I'm still running into, and I think we all talk about this. I think if you look at any Facebook group, social media group, you see people and I reference this a lot because I do a bulk of my work on now as a nonprofit consultant is in the grant writing area, and I get people and I see people who are like, I got my 501c3 Tuesday, I need a grant for $1 million. And that's, you're setting yourself up to fail. And so one of the things that you definitely want would be to plan better. And I've been getting into with a lot of my, I also do, by the way, so everybody knows out there if you ever need me. But also, it's not a pitch. It's actually, I do coaching. So I'm used to talking to people and listening to what they're doing and stuff like that. And you got to plan. And they don't, and I've got so many customers because I do a hybrid coaching / mentoring. So we can talk about your organization's needs as well as your personal needs to be a better, CEO or whatever. And there's no planning. I have a lady who's doing a budget. She's like she does a school in Pakistan, which is wonderful. She did it in memory of her daughter who passed away unexpectedly and all that kind of stuff. And she wanted to make a legacy for her daughter. And I was like, okay, so what's our budget? She's like, well, usually I do about, I think it costs like $65,000 to run. Oh, I think it's about $65,000. Where are we coming from? Well, we got some people we can ask. And I was like, you can't, you've got to, so first step, I'm a big proponent, way before you go after grants, resource development plan, where you're going to get your money. Because it's not all about money because it's mission and it's your heart. And it's I want to help kids in Pakistan or I want to build houses for the homeless and all those kind of things. But the reality of it is about the money because how many animals are you going to save and how many kids are going to go to your organization if you don't have money to pay your staff to be there where it's safe and all those kind of things. So first and foremost, plan. You gotta sit down within the next week of hearing this. You should have, based on the week where we are right now, whenever and this ends up going to air, you've got to get out there and you've got to know where your money's coming from. How are you going to pay people? How are you going to have insurance? How are you going to pay for services? How are you going to get the word out and market? All those things, rather than just go, hey, grant writer, write me a grant. Why, then 6 months later, why'd your program fail? This guy can't write grants. No, you're not prepared. So my first resolution for every nonprofit. Now, this is a bigger thing. You and I talked about this off the air, about the size of organizations. This is a bigger thing, I think, for smaller and newer nonprofits because they're not established and they don't know. But I do think it's important that plan. That's my first resolution.
I think what you said brings up two things. I think for me, there's a famous, well, I don't know if it's famous, but there's this old Roman quote It might be Greek. And it's a poor plan that can't be changed. And so I think planning to me doesn't just always mean sitting in a room and laying out like what I'm going to achieve over this period. It's, to one of the points that you made, also being prepared, having the wherewithal to understand that I might have a corporation walk in the door tomorrow who's primed to give me $1 million to do some project. And if I don't have an idea of what that might be, or better, a one sheet that I can reference and hand off to them, then that's an opportunity that I'm going to miss. I think, in addition to that, what I see many nonprofit leaders struggle with, especially in this moment, is maintaining the ability to step away to critically think about their organization, where they are headed and where they want to go. And so I think those two concepts, being prepared, but also having the wherewithal and the perspective to chart a destination or to chart a route, are really critical when it comes to having a plan as we enter 2026.
I think I mentioned this on one of our last podcasts, one of the last recent ones we've done. And you and I were just talking about it before we started. But my best friend, he's now, I think he's president. He's head of a genetics company in Switzerland. He used to be the head actuary for Genentech. I mean, he's super smart and all that kind of stuff. One of the things that his name's Mike. One of the things that Mike was telling me, and what they do at his business is they have, like you said, projects. Mike is going to do this to this, and it'll probably take 7 months, but it could take up to 9 months. Once it's done, once you get it to a good stopping point, they say bye, and you don't get to work for us for 3 months. They pay him, but they go, you've given us a lot of your time. Go do your family, go take a vacation, go refresh, go get new ideas. When you're in the nonprofit field, everybody feels, I was just talking to a customer about this not an hour ago. And she and I were talking, and she's like, oh, I'm so exhausted already. It's only January. This year's going to be crazy. And I was like, it's such a hard thing that you're a schmo as a nonprofit leader if you're not working 95 hours a week, because, the kids need you, the dogs need you, the hungry people need you, and you're not giving it your all, kind of thing, when you are. And so what you said, I'm so into the self-care kind of stuff, Greg, of take time off. In fact, there's a CEO from Boys and Girls Club. I don't know if we should say names just on the air, but you know her. She was active with Boys and Girls Club and stuff. She's still there, and the very last day before when the club is last open for Christmas for the school year. Now her club opens during the break and stuff like that, so kids come to her last day though. When school's still in, that's her last day until she's going to start again next Monday. So she takes like 5 weeks off. And now she has the vacation, and she tells, that anybody staff person can call them. You're not letting your nonprofit fail or anything like that. But she takes the time to recharge, because she's like, she said to me before, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this 12 months a year and just get tired and burnt out and tired and burnt out. Because when you work in the nonprofit area, and you know this from Boys and Girls Club, sometimes you face some pretty terrible things. Calling CPS because a kid looks like he's abused. If you're working with animal charities, you did your best to adopt these animals out, and some of them didn't make it, and you have to put them to sleep. Whatever, it weighs on you emotionally as well. So, I think making sure that you're taken care of is a big deal. You, the individual.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think where you get into kind of a quagmire is, what do you do when taking time to be intentional about strategy is conflated as a lack of availability from your board?
Well, that's an education of the board, I think, because we could do a whole podcast. I've had some really great board members, and I've had some really dopey board members. And part of it is because they're leaders in their field, or they have a heart for what you're doing, doesn't mean they know it, kind of thing. And so I would have, people who are, heads of the loan department for banks coming in telling me what to do, and I was like, yeah, it doesn't work that way. I mean, as you know, most Boys and Girls Club charge very little, right, to get into the club, if any. We would always charge a little bit because there's an ownership fee, and ours was like, I think we charge like $20 a month, just something, so the parents are not late on being, you're part of the program. So yeah, I mean, when you really think about it, $120 or $240, I should say, a year for everything you get from a Boys and Girls Club is pretty deal. But the bank president, who lives in this first world would be like, we can up our fees to $900 a year, and that's a bargain. And it is a bargain. But they don't get it. They don't get it. That, yeah, was that guy correct? Is $900 a year a bargain for everything that the Boys and Girls Clubs offers? Yes, for sure.
Here's what I think we should do. Listening to you talk, I think what we should do is let's just take 3 minutes.
Few moments later, one eternity later, 3 days later.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we made it halfway into the podcast before we decided to completely change direction. We're going to come up with 10 solid, 12 solid, I can't add. That's going to be my resolution this year. Basic math. But we're going to have 12 solid resolutions for nonprofit leadership going into 2026. Brian, are you ready?
I'm ready. Take turn. You yell off what it is, and we'll take turns rotating.
Okay. All right. I think let's start with CEO resolution. Okay?
Okay.
My resolution for CEOs in 2026 reads as follows. In 2026, I will be the willow, not the oak. And what I mean by that is that I think it's very easy for us to stick to what we have always done and be really rigid with process and with expectation of ourselves and with others. If 2025 taught us anything, it is that this shit is cray, and you need to be able to rotate and bend on a moment's notice. And so I think for CEOs in particular, if you're not constantly demonstrating how to adapt with grace and tenacity, you're doing a disservice not just to the organization, but to all of the people who rely on you for guidance and leadership. And so that would be my resolution for CEOs going into 2026.
Simpatico, buddy. Simpatico.
Yeah?
Recently wrote a blog on Hedy Lamarr, and I said, channel your inner Hedy Lamarr. And where I'm going with this is she was bold, she was relentless, she lived her life the way it needs to be lived. And where I'm going with that is, much like you said, Willow, is you're the leader of the organization. You got to be the one to actually lead. So you've got to break the rules. You've got to take chances. And I'm not saying being insane, but like what you were saying before, comparing to the oak, a lot of times you see that a lot. It's good enough. It's good enough. So long as we get, if our budget's $250,000, so long as we get, if we get 270, that's great. If we get 230, we're going to be fine. No, go for 600,000. Go for $1 million. Or, do that, because your job, your primary job by definition of a CEO a nonprofit CEO, is to fulfill the mission. You're going to fulfill the mission. And how can you do that? You're the leader by being creative, by taking your chances, by doing stuff people go, that is ridiculous. And then if it works, it's not that ridiculous anymore, is it? Those kind of things. So, okay, I'll go then. And like I said, we'll rotate. So we just did CEO. I'm going to go to the major donor. Here's our resolution for the major donor. And my phrase that I wrote down was invest more. Now, I don't mean that as in, hey, just give more money. I'm saying invest more. Now, if I said, Greg, here's $1 million, and I want you to make it $2 million in 6 months in the stock market, what are you going to do? You're going to research. You're going to check out those companies. You're going to see who's got their stuff together. You're going to see, what some trends are. You're going to be part of it, even though you're not part of it, before you drop your money in. So as a major donor, you're going to invest more. Now, if I said, Greg, here's $1 million, and I want you to make it $2 million in 6 months in the stock market, what are you going to do? You're going to research. You're going to check out those companies. You're going to see who's got their stuff together. You're going to see, what some trends are. You're going to be part of it, even though you're not part of it, before you drop your money in. So as a major donor, invest, look, research. Don't just go, oh, it's a boys and girls club. You know, again, we're boys and girls clubs. So boys and girls clubs, they're doing good things. Yeah, boys and girls clubs are doing good things. But use your insight as a businessman or woman. You know, you didn't get $1 million to donate to a boys and girls club, to a nonprofit for nothing. You're smart. You know what you're getting into. Even maybe make a few suggestions and say, hey, Greg, have you guys ever thought of this and this and this? Hey, Brian, have you thought of this and this and this? You know, I'm learning as a CEO, and so to have somebody who's an expert in the field, you know, whatever it was, however you got your gajillion dollars, great. But invest, look, make suggestions to the nonprofits rather than going, oh, here's a check, done, thanks. So that's mine.
Okay. I'm going to go a different tack. When I wrote this, I didn't just think about major donor. I also thought about foundations and how they give and sustainability. And so I think if I'm adopting that mentality, in 2026, I will trust the experts in the room without assuming that I am one. And so I think what I mean by that is there have been so many donor, foundation, and grant relationships that I have navigated where they want everything for this little slice, right? Mm-hmm. They want me to provide a full index of what I will achieve with the money, do a case study, do this long grant application, do all of these surveys, do a stakeholder assessment before I even get a dime. And then when I get those dimes, they're all heavily restricted. They don't give me the flexibility to actually achieve the mission and what I'm trying to accomplish as a part of the organization. I think, one, it's okay to have passion projects. It's absolutely valid to say that when I'm giving $1 million to a nonprofit, I should have a say in how that money is directed. I understand that mentality. At the same time, having lived that on the other side, what it speaks to is a real lack of faith in the expertise that I, as a nonprofit provider, have developed in refining and honing my craft. This is a business model that's undervalued in the sector for the mechanics and the business sense and the acuity that you have to master to be successful at it. And I'm not here because I want to take $1 million payday and go to, drink margaritas on a beach somewhere. Not to say that I shouldn't want to do those things. I mean, we all deserve margaritas on the beach sometimes. But, to come into my house and say, I'm going to give you this money and you're going to do it exactly like I say, it just leaves this feeling of distrust.
And like you said, I think the best word you used was expertise. You're the one who's there. You're the one who's the expert. Now, again, and I'm with you 100%. I don't disagree when you hear people who go, hey, I made my money in, like the guy who did Staples. He was a Boys and Girls Club kid. He actually learned through Money Matters and through a couple of different programs that he liked business and how to do business. So he wanted to give his money towards what helped him. I totally dig that. I played guitar. I want to give my money to a music program. I dig that. But for when they come in and, like I said, get in your business, and this is the way we do it in my business. It's not the way you do it in a nonprofit. It's not what our needs are. It's it's not as important as you think it is.
And times change, right? The programs that were effective when you were a kid at the club may not be effective today. So that's my resolution for major donors. All right, let's bump this back up. Let's go to board members.
Oh.
Yeah, this one's the rough one. Okay, so in 2026, I, putting on my board member hat, will act like an owner and not a critic. I feel like you've watched a lot of organizations who've had the benefit of rapid growth post-pandemic.
Right.
And I think there are, aside from the obvious benefits of that kind of rapid growth, you watch them expand services, serve better people, serve more deeply. I think it's also laid bare the fissure between executive leadership and board governance. I think it's just really important that board members are taking an honest look at what their capacity is as they enter in 2026 to decide what they want to do and how they want to approach it. Are they here to help accomplish the mission, or are they here because they want to be a part of a social club?
Well, that, or if they want to bulk the resume. I've got one of my coaching customers who's a CEO, and she's got this new board member who's all in her business, and he's new to town, and I'm on the board of this, and I'm that kind of thing. So I dig it.
Yeah, I mean that too, where it's just like, are you in it for the right reasons, right? Are you here to actually support this team in accomplishing this mission that's central to who they are? And, I just watch so many nonprofit colleagues navigate this space of Monday morning quarterbacking.
Right.
Where every board member seems to have a perspective on how something could have been done, but when push comes to shove, isn't really willing to do much to support themselves directly. And so I think that 2026 is, with all of the flexibility and all of the challenges that are going to be faced by nonprofits and executive staff, it's really critical that board members are self-reflective enough to know if they're in it for the right reasons and to have the bravery to step aside if they aren't, or to double down if they are, right? And that means, yes, fundraising, right? That means, yes, providing governance. That means, yes, providing networking opportunities. But governance doesn't mean nitpicking. Governance doesn't mean micromanaging. And governance doesn't mean obfuscating your responsibilities in these other categories so that you can dump on the people who are actually tasked with doing work.
I said, okay, kind of the same thing, a little bit different. Just like our oak willow thing earlier on in Hedy Lamar. Do your job. Do your job. Don't tell me that I need to fire my athletic director because he ejected you as a coach from a game because you were acting like a goof. Raise money. Oversee. Your one job is to oversee and make sure that the CEO is doing what they're supposed to be doing and carrying out what you as a group, the CEO and the board, said these are our objectives that we want to do: serve more kids, raise more money, whatever. Be a part of that. I mean, it drove me crazy. I had this one board member who made every meeting go over. You try to be respectful of people's time and hour or whatever. If you say, hey, it's going to be an hour and 15-minute meeting, you stick to an hour so they know they're planning. These are people who are giving their time. And he would always go on these tangents, and this was a guy, and one time, I know he as all the board members are your bosses. So it's a weird dichotomy there. But he would get on us, and one time after a meeting, and by the way, he and I were friends socially. We would play basketball together and stuff like that. But he would always, I'd be like, he said something to me about an event we did, and you should have done this, I should have this. And I go, why am I taking advice from a guy who raises $150 a year, which is about what he raised? And I totally could have been fired for that. I was totally and I said it just to him. It's like, stop being part of the problem and be part of the solution. And I kind of explained to him, he goes, what do you mean? And I tried to explain to him where we're coming from. But everything was, well, where are we buying our food for meals from? Do you own a grocery store? Are you going to give it to us for free? Then stop. It's fine. We're getting the best deal we can. We know that we want to stay within budget.
And often I think one of the problems with that is it's telling, right? It's not, what that tells me is that I have a board member who is so painfully averse to going out and raising money that they're looking for alternatives that reflect poorly on the organization, as though they're mismanaging their resources.
Right.
Going back to what you were saying earlier about board members not really having an understanding of how the business of nonprofits work, but having the assumption that they do. Mm-hmm. Every business in the world is in it to make money. That is the end result of every business. You make every decision on that criteria. That is really the only but critical difference between the nonprofit business model and the regular business model. Often what we misconstrue as good business sense from the private sector can be really damaging from the nonprofit perspective and is used as a wedge to avoid doing the actual work of volunteers and board members, and that's governance, fundraising, and advocacy. If you're not doing all three of those as board members, you're not doing your job.
And it goes back to making sure, maybe that goes to, this could be a bonus resolution for our CEOs and stuff like that, but take more time on board development. Make sure they know that kind of stuff, and they get the understanding of, here's what you need to do. Here's where, this same guy was just goofy. He actually, the board was giving me a big raise because first of all, I was grossly underpaid, and then got me up a little bit above, but he calculated out by percentage, and his comment at the board meeting with me there goes, I don't make that much money. And I had to turn to him and say, do you run a $2.5 million organization? Because I don't. But my point being is, he didn't get it.
Well, board members have to carry with them the understanding that executive staff have no other recourse, right? Like, if a board member is not doing their job, as a governor, as a fundraiser, or as an advocate, there's no one who gets to do a review of that board member outside of the board.
Right.
And the board's not going to do it if it's a toxic environment, and everyone has kind of adopted this mentality of, we're going to point at the team, the staff, and say that it's their responsibility. Every single time I watch executive staff flounder, it's because of that disparity in responsibility. The answer is not solved on the backs of the executive team. It's on the board to do their job.
Yep, I agree. I'm going to go with the volunteer, the resolution for our volunteers. And my resolution for volunteers is to cheerlead responsibly. What I mean by that is, a lot of times, and you know this, and I'm going to, by the way, let me give background. When I was running my clubs, both clubs were in areas with colleges, so we had a lot of college students that worked for us. But cheerlead, when they show up, they go and they help, and they know they're going to help. That's the first thing. But tell people about where you're volunteering. Tell people about what you're doing. Oh yeah, I do work I've been volunteering at the Humane Society, and they're doing some really cool stuff. Be a voice for them as well as being hands and legs to do stuff or to help at the golf tournament or whatever. But the other thing is, and this kind of goes back to my college student thing, if you're going to be a volunteer, be responsible, because in a case like a Boys and Girls Club, you have ratios and stuff like that. If I know that my volunteers are coming that day and we have ratios of 20-1 and you don't show up, that makes things really hard, and we've got to move things around. So I want volunteers to be more cheerleaders.
I got a little animated when I was talking about board members and slammed my fist on the desk, and I may have broken my mouse, but which is going to make things a little difficult as we navigate.
I think you and I both, actually, too bad Spencer's not here. We've all had some stories with board members.
God. In 2026 for volunteers.
Yes.
In 2026, I will respect staff time as much as I respect the mission. So coming at a volunteer perspective, coming to an organization as a volunteer.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Two different kinds of volunteers. Because are we talking about people who would be program staff, or because board members are volunteers as well? That's why I want to make that clear, because I was thinking program people. Because we already hit board, so let's make them like people who I want to come in and work, coach football at your Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah, I was approaching it from the perspective of supporting the operations of a organization, right? Not necessarily as a board member, but coming in to support them either with training resources or as a fundraising event volunteer or helping out with facilities and that kind of stuff, right?
Right. Okay.
And so, because I felt like that would probably be more ubiquitous for other nonprofits. And so for me, good intentions aren't enough. Showing up prepared, reliable, and aligned with what staff actually need, which I guess that actually would work for programmatic volunteers too, right? So if I'm volunteering at a place, to your point, got to show up on time. I got to be ready to deliver, and I have to understand what it is the staff are trying to accomplish or what the organization is trying to accomplish in this moment, and my role in bringing that to fruition. If I'm coming in as an event-based volunteer, I want the organization to shine. I want it to look well, which means not only am I going to do my job and understand my job and ask lots of questions before it's go time, but I'm also going to make sure that as I'm volunteering, people know I'm not a paid employee. I'm here because I
Right.
care.
Yeah, but you got to also work on that mentality, because sometimes you think, oh, I'm just a volunteer, so I'm not as important. I don't know what I'm doing as much. I don't want to take that initiative. So, get where
Hmm.
you're coming from.
And I mean, in that same vein, I would point out to all the volunteers in waiting. I think it was Spencer that was talking in an earlier podcast about the loss of a third space, right? Like we work and we're at home.
Hmm.
And I think that so many of the people around me have stopped building community in this way by looking for service organizations and looking for ways to give back. And that we've become kind of antiseptic to that. And so I would really encourage the volunteer who is yet to turn up to start looking for organizations to help, right?
Yeah.
Because right now, I mean, I'm consulting with a lot of different organizations and they are all navigating really difficult circumstances when it comes to fundraising. And as just a person existing in this politically charged and economically troubling environment, I understand from the donor perspective how cautious we all need to be with our finances. The same is not true of time. I have so much time on my hands, and I, as an individual, can create opportunities.
Gotcha. Very good. Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah, do it. Maybe if you're going to volunteer like it's a place you wanted to work, like you'd like to get paid for down the line. Do it like have that pride and stuff. Okay, it's your turn. Last
Okay,
two. What are we down to? We're down to the
full-time staff member?
yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So in 2026, I will protect my energy like it's a program asset. Yes. So for me, I think, this year has been really reflective for me. I've really looked at like my journey within the nonprofit spectrum and environment. And I was that person who was kind of a lot, just a little much when it came to passion for what I was doing and wanting to be personally invested in the mission. I turned up for the parent teacher conferences. I turned up for the events. I turned up for the fundraisers. I was always game to go and help and talked about the work that I was doing everywhere that I went. It was core to who I was. I wish that there had been more people in my life who had said, hey, bro, we love your energy. We get that you love this, but your world has to be bigger than this, right? And find opportunities to build connection, relationships, and joy outside of this mission. Because this mission is important, but it can't be everything to you.
Well, and here's the other thing. If yeah, I get where you're saying that, because if you invest yourself too much into it, and you're the main driver, and you get hit by a bus, kind of thing, then what happens to the organization? You're the, that kind of thing. That's cool. I said for my resolution for any, mid manager, full timer kind of person is try to become an executive director. I always felt, as the executive, as the CEO, I always felt it was my responsibility to get my really awesome people out. Now, obviously, you don't want to do that because they're awesome people and they're working for you. But if you really believe in making the world a better place and they're disciples of yours and they learn from you and you do a really good job, you need to help get them out and then start learning some leadership skills and stuff like that. But you train them. But that should always be your job. And again, I'm not talking about having a coup at your current place. I'm saying think like that. Start thinking, why you're doing things, or ask the actual CEO why he or she had made those decisions. And I'm not disrespectfully, of course. I want to learn from a learning perspective. I think that's important because, we see this in the Boys and Girls Club, obviously, but there is such a shortfall of good leaders, of people with any kind of leadership skill, that I always joke about this, but I didn't even know when I started my job in Marshall, Texas, the little dinky town. I didn't even know I was on the city commission. I didn't even know that there was a Boys and Girls Club in town. That's how small it was. And I got asked to apply for the job because I was a city commissioner. That was it. I didn't have any skills. I never worked in nonprofit. I never had any experience. They just wanted somebody. So a lot of times, you get people who are just put into the job. Well, if if I'm at the Boys and Girls Club in Marshall, Texas, and my director of operations, and I train her up really well, give her the opportunities, and the school foundation CEO position opens up, go for it. I'd hate to lose her. She was awesome, but that's helping more people. And so thinking that way, so a resolution for those people should be try to become a CEO. So you can, learn, experience, start to lead. Don't think that, I'm going to be a program director my whole life. And there are some people who do that, and it's not a bad thing, but think bigger. Okay, last one is, the whole, for the nonprofit itself, and I think we covered this in the beginning, so I don't know if you want to cut and paste it, but I'll say it again, is plan, know where you're going, get an idea of where you want to go. My whole dissertation at the beginning of this was all about making sure you have like a resource development plan, because you can't go, I'm having a nonprofit and I want to I need you to give me money, I need you to write a grant, that's poor. That's poor. I always tell people, if I were not a nonprofit and I were doing Brian's Donuts, I don't think I could go, hey Greg, give me $3 for a donut today, and after I get all this money in and I can buy my oven, in 7 months I'll bring you that donut. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. And we've said this a million times on this podcast, whether it's you, Spencer, or I, was 501c3 is just tax designation. You're still business first, and if you don't know how to run things, you're going to fall apart, and you're going to serve no people, you're going to serve no animals, you're going to feed nobody else, whatever.
Even worse, you're taking funding away from an organization that otherwise
They could use it. So that was mine. Planning is important, and I think it's highly underrated and not thought about. It's just, let's go do the golf tournament, and let's just go do this, and let's go. And it's not strategic. No strategery, as George Bush used to say, as Will Ferrell, as George Bush used to say.
I think so. For mine, I'm going to switch mine up.
Okay.
I said for the nonprofit, in 2026, we will stop pretending scarcity is the same thing as a virtue. Right now, as I'm saying that, I am thinking about all of those executive directors who have failed to replace their falling apart chair in their office, the middle managers who have walked by that broken outlet cover for the last 7 months, knowing that someone could electrocute themselves there, but we haven't had time to fix those things. Coming at situations and everything that you do from the perspective of abundance, I think is a really critical step to shedding this cloak of poverty and actually moving toward an abundant 2026.
I think these were good, considering, like I said, no Spencer, and that we kind of did this on the fly. I think this is good information that anybody could use. I mean, you could break it down into a little more formal if it, less than what us being just goofy about it. But those were good, because if anybody listening to this, got to remember that's the kind of stuff that I think will help you. And keep in mind, we're missing a third of our 60 years or so, but we've done this, we've been there. That's what people have got to understand. So,
what would happen if a nonprofit actually kept this resolution?
Well, I think you'd have, ultimately it's about. I think I've said ultimately too much today. Ultimately, though, I think it's about having and coming up with stronger organizations. And the bottom line of what you're getting to is more blank, whatever you're serving, more will be done. More kids will be served, more dogs will be saved, more houses will be built, more people will be fed, more cancer patients will get there, whatever. That's what I think will happen. I think you'll have a more efficient nonprofit world.
Not only would a nonprofit, if they followed their New Year's resolution, like if these were their resolutions, they actually followed them over the course of the year, I think not only on the stakeholder side would the mission be executed far more effectively.
Right.
That's downstream of the true impact that would be reflected on the movement that has now grown around that mission.
Right.
Because if the executive director is operating with an abundance mindset, they are taking time to do strategy, they're investing in themselves,
Yep.
board members are keeping true to their responsibilities of governance, advocacy, and fundraising. Middle managers and full-timers are committed to helping without burning themselves out, and volunteers are committed to demonstrating why they care about this mission, as opposed to just becoming another burden to it. I think that all creates an environment in which we can all succeed and do really well, and really feel the benefit of participating in. Like, I didn't get into nonprofit work because I wanted to make $1 million, and if I did, boy, that was a dumb choice, right? I got into nonprofit work because I gave a crap about the world around me, and I wanted to have fun doing it. And boy, there are a lot of fun people who work in the nonprofit world. There's a lot of broken people too. Right. And gee, wouldn't it be nice if we could create an environment in which those people were cared for and given the levity and leeway to contribute in a meaningful way, right? So I think on the stakeholder side, yeah, we'd all be better at executing our missions, but we'd all be happier in the doing of that execution as well.
Yeah, with more verve. Well, that's very good. I think that, like I said, I think that was good. Now, you have any wacky facts? Do you have any wacky facts? What's our closing? What are you doing?
We have
Give me something.
We have to do a wacky fact for a closing? That's new. You can't come at me from left field with something like that. You got to give me a heads up.
I want to see if you knew anything. I wanted to see if you knew anything off the top of your head. What's a wacky fact?
Oh God!
Give me something. Give me something good. Let's.
Oh, I got something. You ready?
Oh, there you go. See?
Okay. All right.
You worked it under pressure.
Here's what you got. There is no gimbal in existence that is as effective as the chicken's head.
What does that mean? What's a gimbal?
Okay, so in professional videography, they have this tool called a gimbal. And basically what you do is you mount your camera on this thing, and no matter where you move or how you articulate it, the camera stays in the same position and can see everything that you need it to see without going wonky or flipping over or dipping down or up.
Okay, cool.
There's no gimbal that's been designed that trumps the average garden variety chicken, to the point that several people have gone to install like GoPros on their chickens' heads and walking around with them looking at different things. So there's your wacky fact for the day. How do you like that?
Mine's going to probably be much more known than yours because I didn't know what a gimbal was. Here's a cool one. The Beatles officially broke up at Disney World.
Oh.
How do you like that?
I mean, it's not Disneyland, so it can't be the happiest place on earth.
Right. Well, it was Disney World. It was on, like, at the end of the year in, like, 74, maybe, kind of thing. So they got tired of each other and said bye.
Not to take away from your wacky fact, but do they call like Disney World? Like, do they keep that branding across all the different Disneylands?
They do. I always tell people
that seems mutually exclusive.
Well, I always tell everybody that because I don't know, I told you when I was growing up, I grew up in Laguna Beach, right? So I was like 20 minutes away from Disneyland, and I'm not exaggerating when I say Disneyland.
Oh, Disneyland. Oh, Laguna Beach.
Laguna Beach, yeah. I was like, I've been to Disneyland well over 100 times in my life without, and I mean, no exaggeration. Because when you have a California driver's license, they give you a discount, and by the way, this is back in the day, and now it's like, $250, $300 a day. Back when I was there, it was $30 a day. Because I remember I would always take my brother on because he couldn't drive and I could at the time. I mean, for his age, I would take him to Disneyland on Christmas Day, and it was $30 to get in. And I'd have a $100 bill and look cool with a $100 bill to get in, to park, to get some food and all that kind of stuff. And now it's crazy. But anyway, all that to say is, I always tell everybody the most true slogan, the most true moniker around is Disneyland's the happiest place on earth, because there's never been a time when I haven't been just in awe, in wonder, in excited to be there. And I mean, I'm talking about as recently as a year and a half ago when we went with my son, my wife and I went with our son, and we did what do they call it now? It's Tiana's River Ride. Tiana's River Ride, the Splash Mountain. And we did that like 8 times in a row because nobody was in line and stuff like that. And it was just, happiest place on earth without a doubt.
So I went a couple times when I was a kid, never very often. And then, honestly, the last time that I had gone, I didn't really, it was just too many people. Like,
there's a lot of people, yeah.
Too many people wanted to take a picture, and it was just a very cloistered environment, and then, like, you're waiting forever to get on the lines. But I went this spring, I went with my family. Took my 3-year-old and my 7-year-old, because they're perfect age. My wife was like, we got to do it. Yeah. This is the time we got to do it. And so we went. And I don't know, but I think I now have some Disney magic in me, because that trip, we totally crushed it. There was nobody in the park. So Rise of the Resistance is the new hot ride. And, if you wait an hour to get onto that ride, that's normal. Yeah. We were on that bad boy in a 15-minute line. Like, it was insane. We walked in to what's the name of that New Orleans-styled restaurant that they have by the...
Blue Bayou?
Yeah, Blue Bayou. Don't even have to make reservations. We just walked right in, got ourselves a seat. It was a great time for lunch, and it was... and Star Tours, we did a whole bunch of multiple runs with Star Tours. They did, it was during May, so they were doing the May the Force Be With You version. And so they had Space Mountain converted into Star Wars 2.
Very cool.
And we walked right into that as well. Like, I mean, it was just nuts. The only thing, well, there were 2 things that we didn't get to see while we were there. And that was It's a Small World, which also kind of counts as a win, right?
You don't have to see Small World.
And then Indiana Jones.
Here's the thing. My wife loves Indiana Jones. I hate it because Indiana Jones feels like it was invented before they had curved track. So you're like going dunk 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 dunk, and you're getting like whiplash. Okay, so I was my grades, and when I was in high school, I was a straight A student, and my mom would always say, as long as I had good grades and I wasn't skipping school, stuff like that, we could ask, my best friend and I would ask, and we'd say, like, could we go to Disneyland, on a Tuesday during school? So everybody in California, was still in school, and we just go up on a Tuesday at 9 a.m., and there was nobody there. And you just hit the whole entire park. Yeah, I love it. But
awesome.
Happiest place on earth for sure. Happiest place on earth, so.
All right, well, Brian, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We did.
New Year's resolutions, Disney adventures.
No Spencer.
Like, who even is Spencer?
Hold
we
on.
don't need that guy. Yeah, cover him up. Cover him up in the logo.
There you go.
But thank you so much for making time to join me today.
Yeah.
And listeners, thank you very much for joining us to listen to our nonprofit ramblings as we came up with this episode on the fly. I hope that even though it was abstract and all over the place, that you found some nugget that you will hold on to as you enter into 2026. Because God knows, 2026 has got to be better than 2025.
That's what we keep saying. That's what we keep hoping. My wife says it a million times. It's our year, so keep our fingers crossed.
All right. Well, I'm Greg with Let's Go Studio. For those of you who are interested in learning more about me, I do a consulting, fundraising, and fractional support practice called Let's Go Studio. You can look me up at www.letsgostudio.org.
Brian Partee, nonprofit marketplace, nonprofit consulting, specialty area, grant writing mostly, but I still do a lot of other stuff, and certified coaching. So nonprofitmarketplace.org. Hit me up, and I'd be glad to help you make your nonprofit thrive.
Alrighty. Okay, listeners, have a great and happy new year.
May the force be with you.